to the stage the man for the hour, Pastor John Enelama.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Please, you can kindly have your seat. I hope you've said hello to somebody this morning. Maybe you should say hello to somebody again, to your left, to your right. Are you sure it's not my voice? To your left, to your right. Welcome to the Anchor Men's Conference 2018, Bold Move 2. Well, I'm very glad for those summaries of last night, since I wasn't here, and it's one conference, so I'm supposed to be building on the important work Pastor Tony did last night. I'm also excited that a lot of people were blessed, and from the testimonies and the summaries, I know that that God did some work among us last night in Jesus' mighty name. Thank you for coming out this morning. I'm going to be continuing, and since we have a theme, hopefully we can build on that theme. I know this is Bold Move 2, so if I can have the slides, thank you. Yes, thank you. Esther, Vashti. Where is Vashti? Have you found Vashti? Are you in God's program or your personal program? I like what our brother said. He said the more confused he gets, the more revelation he has. So it's all good. It's all good. So I think we're going to be transitioning from Vashti this morning to Esther. We've learned a lot about Vashti. We're still looking for her. But we've learned a lot, and I'm glad that there is a connection. There is a connection. Yes. Okay, no problems. Eureka. How many of us were science students or are science students? Remember Eureka? And I still remember. So I asked us this morning, because I'm wondering, what is Eureka? And you can answer to yourself, and I hope I can make this interactive. In fact, I was going to ask our people that I wanted to stay here, not here, if it was possible. But I know this is big, so I wonder whether you have a lectern or something. I know you shouldn't move this. Whether you have a lectern, you can move for me this morning. What is Eureka? Okay, a famous exclamation attributed to Archimedes. The sudden, unexpected realization of a solution to anything in life. My prayer for us this morning is that everybody will have a Eureka moment. In Jesus' mighty name. I pray that God will speak to us. Fundamental things, truth, that will help every one of us to run our race, become bolder, and to do the things that God would have us do. In Jesus' mighty name. You want to move this one? I'd like to see the people. Thank you very much. And sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you. I'm now closer to everybody. So, if you have had an education, and I know most of us have, if not everyone in this room, remember, if you were to ask the question if there's anybody that is an educationist here, somebody that is really practices education or has a career in education, if I were to say to you today, what is the most important part of our education? Which educational season is the most important part? Is it early child education? Is it primary, kindergarten, primary? Is it secondary? Is it just one? Is it the junior secondary or senior? Is it your college degree or your advanced degrees? Which is the most fundamental? Which is the most important? I can hear an echo, and what I hear from most people is primary. And I think the answer is almost easy because of the word. Even the word primary shows it's primary, right? Primary education. So primary education, primary, another word, synonym. When I was growing up, my eldest sister was a teacher. And she taught me something in primary school. When you learn to speak English, because of course, English is a second language. I mean, I'm from the East, so I don't know which language I spoke first, but I know in learning English, she said, when you speak English, when you construct a sentence, that if it sounds right, it's right. If it sounds wrong, it's wrong. That when the sentence is correct, it sounds right. So, and I learned from that. So, primary school is fundamental. And it also means that not every education is primary, right? Okay, so why do I start from there? I'll give you some reasons. One is that if we don't focus on the fundamentals, we can miss out in life. Okay? Why is primary school so fundamental? And how does it relate to our class today? Let me tell you why. Because I don't know if you have you met people who did miss primary school but went on to go to university, college? People that for some reason, maybe there was no money, and then they forced themselves, and they read, and some did advance the A-levels and then entered university. Or do you know, not all of them, but do you know how you know most of them? Sometimes you meet a professor who went through that process, who is very brilliant. That's why they are professors. You know how you know? Is that when people do not learn their tenses in primary school, they stumble with English language all their life. They are not, those tenses, when they say present tense, past tense, present continuous, is, was, where, it looks funny, it looks small. But when you don't learn it fundamentally, you struggle with that. So when you are brilliant, you're intelligent, but you struggle with your English, and because you're thinking, how can that person be saying that? Because of that skipping of primary school. It's fundamental. And then, when my daughter was in primary school, who is the youngest child, I went to the open house once, and she schooled in Nigeria, and then finished her primary school in America. And I went to the open house once in the US, and the teacher was saying, he said, when you're young, you learn to read, and when you grow older, you read to learn. And many people stop reading because they graduated from school, and they feel like, why should I carry a book, and so on and so forth. So today, I've also come to remind us as we go on that you should read to learn for the rest of your life. And that is very important. So we move. So here is the Eureka. The Eureka moment in physics, this is called the Archimedes principle, which says that when a body is immersed in a liquid, it experiences an upward buoyant force, which is equal to the weight of the liquid displaced. So that's what he found out. That was his Eureka moment. And today, I pray, this morning, that God will speak to every one of us in Jesus' mighty name. That we'll have a Eureka moment. That's the word that God spoke to me this morning as I prepared. I kept asking how, what, and so on and so forth. But then we've talked about Vashti. Where is Vashti? Maybe I should have put that up there because they told me that last night. Now, I want to transition. I spoke to Pastor Tony, by the way, because when they told me he was not going to be there, I called him, and then he called back, and I said, I hope he's not life-threatening. He said, no, not that God will handle everything, no problem. So I am making a transition. So I said, what is the Esther model? What I mean by that is that what are the lessons we can learn from Esther's life? We remember his statement. We remember what Esther said in the most critical moment of her life. We remember what she said. If I perish, I perish. But what do we learn from her life? Let's consider the facts about her life first. Esther was Jewish. Esther was a good-looking woman. Esther had a relation with Mordecai. Esther was somebody that was mentored, discipled. Esther was a very obedient person, even as an adult. By the time she was contesting, she followed simple instructions that most people miss in life. I don't know, I'm sure there are some people here who train and those kind of things. You've heard it been said that when somebody is discipled or mentored, that they travel faster in life. And there are many reasons for that. Because not everybody has the time to learn from their own mistakes. Does that make sense? So when you follow people, it can help you. By the way, Esther's life teaches us from her experience with Mordecai that there are significant individuals that are sent into our life that except they show up and play their part, you're not likely to reach your full potential, which is where I'm focused on today. Because by the time I'm done, I'm really focused this morning. I don't know what's going on, second session and so on what it means to reach your full potential in this life as a person, before we can talk about the nation, just as an individual. That if you don't have people point the way to you, you're not likely. You can, but it's one of those things that is very critical, very critical. And it's important that we realize that there are people placed in our life or our lives to play those critical roles. And we don't always have to like them. They don't always have to be the people that do the kind of things that we like. Okay? Somebody has said that your friends, those who like you, they use your strength because they love you. They promote you. They celebrate you. But your enemies actually develop your strength because they focus on your weakness. That's all they talk about. And if you're wise, you accept your weakness as your weakness and develop your weakness rather than argue about it. People that are not able to take criticism are not able to go far in life. By the way, none of us is able to take criticism. Those that take it have trained themselves to take it. And I'll be talking about why they're able to train themselves in this class today also, by the way. Okay, there's a reason why you can be criticized on people, and even though naturally they feel like fighting back, but they just take it in and actually go praying about it, go to the bookstore and be saying that if somebody talks too much, what kind of book should he buy? People do that. Other people spend all their whole life trying to convince everybody that they are not what people are saying they are. And of course, you know that you can't see all of yourself. They call it the Johari window for those that know. In other words, we all have blind spots. You can't see yourself. You don't see the back of your head. By the way, I was teaching some classes this week, yesterday and the day before, and I was telling people that when you are looking for your destiny, you want to know what God has called you to do in life, that you should always listen to what those around you are saying about you, because what you are called to do in life is very often visible to those around you. Okay, so most people that are called to pastor are called pastor before they have become pastor because they're already behaving like pastors. And there's a reason for that, okay? The fundamental reason is because we are wired in a certain way and sent into the world. You will never have been born except there was a purpose for you that was finished before you were born. You will never have been born. The proof, the fact of your birth is the proof of your finished destiny. And it's not difficult to understand that. You can't launch a movie you have not finished. Your life couldn't have been launched by God except your life was finished. That's how it is. Does that make sense? You can't launch a movie. A movie cannot be launched until the movie is finished. So if you were born, you were launched. If you were launched, your destiny was finished. So the question is whether you would discover that destiny. So you never need to make up a destiny. This is important because we're talking about Esther. Remember that what makes Esther critical in Scripture is the fact that Esther fulfilled her destiny. That one move she made is what she's remembered for today, was exactly why she was born. That one move is why Esther was born, to save a nation. So it's important that we understand that we're not in this room this morning by accident, for example. No, you're not. Nobody is here by accident. You're not a Nigerian by accident. There's no need living in regret, looking back and thinking if things were different. I wish my mother was different. I wish my parents were different. You don't need to have those kind of thoughts. No. I remember boarding school. When we were in boarding school, years ago in the 80s, going to school, when it's visiting day, everybody comes. Every parent comes with the car they have, not the car they wish they have. So when you're, as a student, sometimes you can pass your father's car, be looking for another car. Yes. Does that make sense? Yeah, you can pretend it's not your father's car, but that's the car, not the car she wants to have or he wants to have. That's the car he has. And you have to accept that car. And you have to accept your mom. You can't choose another person's mom and say, I like the way this mom is dressed today and the way she cooks that I'm going to reject my mother and choose. You don't do things like that. It's the same way about destiny, that God has a purpose for every life. A purpose. And by the way, the reason you need to accept that is because despite the greatness of every other person, their greatness can never become a substitution for your calling. Did you know that if one church in this country, Nigeria, were to get everybody saved and become the biggest church in Nigeria, they can only do, at best, what they were called to do. Without other churches, the kingdom of God is incomplete. It's not about the size, it's about the calling. If you're called to be a pastor, you do everything, you pastor everybody, you can't live beyond your calling. Everybody in this room is important in God's agenda. The only thing that happens is that when people have paid the price to do what they are called to do, they look so good doing it that other people are willing to abandon their destiny and be them. Does it make sense? When people who have paid the price to be the best and to do what they are called to do, and they do it so well, when they do it, they are so good at it. When you look at them, they are so good that you start wishing you were them. In fact, sometimes you leave what God is asking you to do, and when I say that, I'm not talking about everybody believing that they must start their own company. That's what I mean. I'm talking about destiny, purpose. Because in that purpose, there are all kinds of purposes. There are kinds of purposes. Some people are called just to mentor somebody, and that person will be so great that people will never remember them after they are done. But it's still their calling to help that person become. And the person becomes, and is so big that when he tells people that you are the one that raised them, they don't believe. They don't believe. And if they are wise, no matter how big they get, they will not forget where they came from. Because there are things you had that you gave them that made them to become. And that thing, you still have it and will never lose it. So, we learn. So, what are the lessons from Esther's life? We know the facts about her. This beautiful Jewish girl, unknown to nobody. And yet, God had a destiny for Esther. Vashti needed to behave the way she behaved so that Esther can enter her destiny. Because even Pharaoh was created to manifest the glory of God. It was necessary that Pharaoh be stubborn. Because if Pharaoh was not stubborn, the race would not have parted. Even the horse is created for the day of adversity. The horse is created for battle. The horse, everything is created on purpose. The horse was created by God and was created by God to run towards the sound of battle. Most animals run away from the sound of battle. The horse was created by God to run towards, that's why the horse was used for warfare. It was created to run towards the sound of battle and does not turn away from the clanging of sword. So everything is created on purpose. So you have to ask God. That's why I started talking about primary school, fundamental. The fundamental about life is that the reason you were born was to fulfill your destiny. That's the only reason you exist. And so, all you must do, just like Esther, is to find why you were born. And the moment you find it, you must spend the rest of your life fulfilling that destiny. And if you do these two things, you will never be confused in life. Because every adversity, every problem has a purpose. Sometimes I used to be like this. That's why I can understand this and I can say this with conviction. So many people live all their lives running away from problems. There are some people that believe that a day will come when they have no problem. They are grossly mistaken. The only way is to be buried. There's nothing like that. You're either coming into problem, leaving one, or about to enter a serious one. That's just life. However, if you do some of the things we're talking about in this class, your language and vocabulary will change. You will start to thrive on problems. You will start to thrive on problems. Just an adjustment in life. So having considered some of you, what are these lessons from the life of Esther? So I will now say, what is the one big lesson from Esther's life? What do we remember Esther for? They told Esther, we're in trouble. You need to go to the king and plead our case. And she said, but you know the rules. I can't go to the king except he has called me. If I go and I take the risk and he does not extend to me the golden scepter, I'm done for. But if he calls me, I can go. But he has not called me. He asking me to go. And Mordecai sent back messengers to Esther and said, this is not an ordinary moment. I don't even know whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this, Esther. What I'm telling you is critical. It's important that despite the risk of your life, that you must go to the king. Then Esther understood. Esther put on her purpose and divinity, or purpose in God and destiny. And Esther said, go back and tell him that you must tell our people to fast and pray 3 days and 3 nights for me and the people that walk around me. For 3 days and 3 nights, I'm not going to eat because I have made up my mind that I'm going to go to the king. And if I go and I perish, if I perish, I perish. I want to share with us that statement by Esther, when that statement is made with conviction, nobody talks like that except they made up their mind. So people can say it and they don't mean it. So I'm not talking about those people now. Maybe people say it as a cliche. But that's not where I'm going. That when a person is ready to die, first of all, they seldom die. The people that really die are those who are afraid of death. People that are ready to die only die when their time comes. The people that fear death are the ones that die before their time. Esther said, if I perish, I perish. So my question to us this morning is, why did Esther say that? What kind of a person? Because by that statement and the move she made, Esther ultimately maximized her life. She made the most of her life on earth. That's why we're talking about Esther. Esther is dead, but Esther is still speaking to us this morning. That's what we call a maximized life. When a man is gone, he can't forget. He's not physically with you, but he can't forget. His presence fills the room. His legacy is unforgettable. I know a man, he's still alive. He's American. He's lived in Nigeria since 1978. He was born in 1934. He came here at the age of 44. He brought Arthur Anderson to Nigeria in 78. And he just retired from his, what you might call his third career this year. And I believe he's still in Nigeria. He's 84. He's produced 3 cabinet ministers, raised thousands of professionals. I've worked with some of them. I didn't work in Arthur Anderson or Anderson Consulting or now KPMG and Accenture. But 2 of my brothers went through the system. My immediate elder brother, immediate younger brother, I'm sandwiched. So I work with both of them closely. And I can tell the impact of the life of the man on them. I can say categorically, but I'm human, I can be wrong, that if my brother was not mentored by him, he wouldn't be a minister today. Because my brother is not a politician the way you describe it. Why is this important? Maximize destiny. The Kramer will not be forgotten. In my own research as a Nigerian, I find 2 men whose lives I consider extraordinary. First is Pa Elton, who was British, who came to Nigeria in 1937 and died January. He came to Nigeria March 37, died January 86. 2 months short of 50 years of ministry in Nigeria. Gave his life, worked with university students, poured his life into them, mentored them. A prophet to the nation of Nigeria, an apostle to the nation, saw things other people could not see. Prophesied over Nigeria. Preached the gospel of the kingdom, not just any kind of gospel. Pa Elton was able to say that Nigeria first will be known for corruption around the world before it's going to be known for righteousness. We're living in that season, and most people are confused because they don't know history. It's like, why are we so corrupt? Well, there is a battle over Nigeria. That battle is over her destiny. And it's not a complex thing, and I'll talk about it tonight, but let me say this in passing. There was a day in heaven that the devil appeared before the sons of God and challenged God. And there was a day on earth that Job went through calamities. Job never knew why. he was going through calamities, but those calamities were decreed, allowed by God. Because God was bragging on Job, and Job is not aware. But let's leave that. Pa Elton lived in Nigeria and raised people. In what you call the religious sphere. He died a humble man, a simple man. But he died as a man that entered into a covenant with God about the Nigerian nation. He didn't allow himself to be buried in England or UK. He died here, was buried here. Because he said, when I come back for the millennial reign, I'll reign from Nigeria. He said, I'm a Nigerian spiritually. I was not born here, but Nigeria is my inheritance. And it's something we can't stay longer than that. Then I have Dick Kramer, who I call a business missionary, who came as a businessman. Richard Kramer. Richard, in America, Richard is Dick. Dick L. Kramer. You can Google him. Most of the things I've said are documented. And so there's nothing that is strange, that is not there in the public domain. He came here, recruited people. Just the way Mordecai was working with Esther, Dick was working with Nigerians. He used what he calls a simple philosophy, best in class. So they went to universities and looked for brilliant students. And since they couldn't measure brilliance and intelligence, they just said, look, anybody that has a minimum of second class upper division in any field would recruit them. And if they're in doubt, they ask you about your first looking certificates. Did you make credit or distinction? But that's how they recruited people. So they took the best and the brightest over a period of time. That was a system. So they took them, trained them, and they were very good at what they did. My brother studied medicine, for example, like I tell people. He's a medical doctor who didn't like medicine. It's a long story. He will tell it better. But my version of his story is that he was not called to be a doctor, but he was a good science student. And so in the era, which we still live in, where people don't ask you what you're called, they just say, did you do maths? You know mathematics? Engineering? Biology? Very good. Medicine. They say, what about horticulture? Not my daughter, not my son. What about plumbing services? Not my daughter, not my son. And so on and so forth. But that's humanity. Because we're limited in knowledge. That's why we behave those ways. But let's leave that. It's a different topic. But he studied medicine, was a good medical student, made the dean's list, graduated at the age of 21, so was good, was a brilliant student, but didn't like medicine for many reasons, and found, through a long story, changed career and joined this organization and was mentored. After 4 years, became an accountant. After 4 years, left to go to business school. I told some people, I said he went to business school, and they told him in business school, they said, whoever taught you accounting is very, very good. Whoever taught you finance is very good. Because he went to a school that was very competitive. And they said he won the prize in finance for the whole school years. They said, yeah, finance was so good, they gave him tax-free money. And that's a prize that only one person can win every year, or every 2 years, because he went to a 2-year business school, Harvard Business School. Every 2 years, so 800 students, only one person can win it. He won it. They say your accounting is sound. Part of it is the fact that he's gifted, but part of it is also training, mentorship. Because as you know, if you went from medical school to business school, you won't have the same results. It's so obvious. That's the importance of people going through tutelage in life. You belong to a local assembly. Don't take it for granted. I have a friend who is also a mentor, very mightily used of God. If I call his name, most of us know him. He's very controversial now, but he's still my friend because I know him, right? He's not always right, but he's still my friend. When he was sent to Russia, before he moved to Ukraine, he was living in Russia, and the persecution was so much, communism was so much, that he wanted to escape to go to America. He wrote to many American preachers. In fact, not America, he wrote to preachers all over the world, he said. Only one person replied, Kenneth Hagin Sr. Not only replied, sent him all his books. Because he said he was about to backslide. He said most Christians who came with him backslid. Because on Sunday, to prove that there is no God, that's when they play golf. That's when they do everything. They just want to prove there's no God. So the thing was so bad. People were backsliding. And he said he almost did. So he said, let me go. I want to go to Tulsa and go to school. And then, but because he was a man that prayed, he started praying and God spoke to him. God said, that there are 4 ways I train my ministers when I call them, the way I've called you. He said, number 1, I send them to a local church and plant them there, and there they grow. Number 2, if I don't do that, I send them to a Bible school. Number 3, if I don't send them to a Bible school, I send them to a man of God that will mentor them and disciple them. But he said, every time I want to do something that is out of the ordinary, I send them to the wilderness. He said, communism is your wilderness. Don't leave it. Stay here. If you can practice Christianity here and find me here, you'll find me anywhere in the world. So, even God knows that men have to be raised. Esther was raised and taught some things. And Esther made that move that helped her. So what's the one big lesson? Is that Esther maximized her destiny. So this morning I ask you, how can you and I maximize our destiny? How can you maximize your destiny? How can you maximize your destiny? How can you make the most of life? Let's reason together. Men, I know there are women here and I welcome them. Thank you very much for coming. I want to ask you, I want to say some things. You know, in this life, many times people are looking for a job. I meet people all the time who come, they say, can you help me get a job? What's surprising is that when you pre-interview most people, since you're not the one giving the job, you know, you have to, before you carry somebody's CV, you have to be able to defend the CV, so you do your due diligence. You know, you ask questions. Dude, most people, when you talk to them, they're not really looking for a job. They're looking for somebody that will pay their bills. They want to pay rent. They don't have money for food. They don't have clothes. They don't have shoes. So they're anything that can. That's why some people, once they start work, they're just waiting for the month to end, for that pay. They don't even think deeply about what they're doing. A lot of people don't realize. Now, of course, I know we have high poverty in Nigeria. So somebody can say, if somebody never chop, how you go, they think now. So that's a different ballgame. Those of you wait there, you don't chop. So let's talk to ourselves. Because I know there are levels. There are levels where you don't expect somebody to think because he has not eaten. Do you understand? So I'm not talking about those people. I'm not talking about you. I can get to those people later on. But think about this for a moment. So you're reasoning and thinking, the company you want to go and apply to also has needs. And it's looking for people to solve her problems. And by the way, if you can solve those problems and the company is doing well, you will not have problem with pay. Because, you know, there are many, think about it. Maybe a company says, I'm looking for an MD. So I used to see those adverts a lot. I don't see it a lot, you know, and they put, you know, relevant experience, and they write all those qualifications, and remuneration, they say very attractive. You know, they always, you know, but you know, there are always people that think, if I can just work here, if I work here, I'll live in Ikoyi, and then I'll have official cars, and then I have a home and people to serve me. And it's true. A good example is American presidency. When somebody goes to the Oval Office and lives in the White House for 4 years, or a few years, or 4 years, or 8 years, and they come out alive, it doesn't matter how you describe them. They are no longer small boys. In fact, you can even target just to go there and come out. You don't need to, your policy can be terrible, it doesn't matter. Once you finish, you just go around the world giving lecture. Yes. Because when they give that lecture, it's $500,000 naira, or $500,000 rather, or $1 million or more. But the reason is because of who they have become. Being a good president or a bad president doesn't change what that person has become, because the American president, humanly speaking, solves the most complex problems in human history. The American president, when they asked Obama, what do you hate about your job? One of the things he said that what I hate is that the problems that come to me are problems no other person can solve. If he gets to his desk, nobody could solve it. And he says the other thing I don't like is that few people can really advise you in the world, because only few people have been where I'm going. By the way, talking about purpose, I shouldn't miss this here. Have you wondered why God created America as a country? Don't worry about the bad things. Just the starting point. Why God created America. Colonial America, as I like to call it, and they call it in history. You know the reason why? Because you need to understand that to also understand why God made Nigeria. Because there are some similarities. By the way, why God made Israel. Every nation is created on purpose. God created America, my own submissions, because there are lawyers in the house, right? Is one, he wanted a country that will police the rest of the world. Because he knew there will be problems. There will be nations that need to be policed, in fact. There will be nations that their president needs to be flogged. God knew that. God knew that Osama bin Laden would be born and be raised. And Osama bin Laden would do the things he would do. There will be Al-Qaeda. And God wanted a country that can take him out so that people can continue to travel. If Osama bin Laden was not killed, most of us won't travel anymore. Maybe you didn't travel immediately after 9/11. I traveled a month. I was in America a month after 9/11. If you know how it affected travel, there were queues. All those machines you see did not originally exist. All those machines that check all of us. You know, before you used to transfer tickets. If you have ticket, you have problem, you can transfer it to somebody else. You can't do that anymore because of Osama bin Laden. Because, it was a serious matter. It took 10 years to take him out. And after $1 billion had been spent. Which country would do that? Which country can spend $1 billion to take one man out? Over a 10-year period, started by George Bush, finished by Obama. Despite the fact they're not in the same party. You understand? Then America was also created to be a refuge nation. A place when you're in trouble, anywhere in the world, you can run to it. If you see the way, despite the problems they have, the way they grant visa, if you just say to them that they are persecuting your country, they say, if you prove it, they will take you. Now, of course, it's not limited, but do you know during the Second World War, the Jews were rejected by most nations. And those that rejected them, including Cuba, they suffered. Britain did not vote for the nation of Israel. That's when Britain started to go down. Because that's biblical, but we're not going there. America accepted Jews. And those people were winning Nobel Prizes inside America. Albert Einstein died in America. He was Jewish, born in Europe. Check history. That's the purpose of a country. What about Nigeria? Why did God create Nigeria? Have you thought about it? Don't worry about our problems. Don't focus on our woes. But why did God create the country? God created Nigeria for about 3 key reasons. There may be other reasons, but this one's in my own submissions again. Number 1, a black nation, populated by blacks, ruled by blacks, that can show the world there's no difference between white and black. That's why Nigerians are some of the smartest people in the world. It doesn't matter. Do you know that when you go to school, I went to a unity school, and of course, only one person can come first and second. So somebody must come last. Do you understand? Yes. But don't let that confuse you of that competition, because the school I went to, after we finished, people made best results in their departments all over the country. Not only those that came first, even those people that we didn't know their name, they still made best results because they were brilliant. So only one person can come. So don't let the fact that some people are shining in Nigeria. All of us can't shine in Nigeria because we are shining too much. But don't let that make you underestimate the human investment in the average Nigerian. Don't try. If you want to know how much God invested in Nigeria, consider 419 for a moment. I have somebody from my home state. I'm from Abia. Somebody from Umahia. I don't know how old he is today, but in his early 20s, the scam he did in America, FBI, CIA, they were looking for him. Up to today, they didn't find him. How? A 22-year boy. It's not a good thing he did, but can you imagine the ingenuity, the intelligence to be collecting credit cards, chopping people's money? Even though it's a bad thing, when I heard that, I said, these Nigerians. Do you understand? But those are investments of God that are just only that is not utilized well. That guy has to be a genius. Think about it. Inside the system, where from the time you get a social security number, everything you did is monitored. How was he able to do it? By the time they found out, they said this guy will go to a party and be spraying money in Houston. And they're still looking for him. They will come there, he's no longer there. They go here, he's no longer here. How? And then what about the good ones? The Philips of this world. Even my brother that I mentioned, who is my blood brother, I went to his commencement at Harvard in 1994. I walked into the office with him, and they were practicing how to pronounce his name. Not just because they would pronounce it generally, but because he was graduating with high distinction. Top 10%, top 20% of the class, top 10% of the class, top 20 is distinction, top 10%, 80 out of 800. And the dean said to come from Nigeria and study here and pass, it's a big thing. To now pass well, and now to be dusting everybody, that it's out of the ordinary. Because of God and God's endowment, because of he's a Nigerian too. Nigerians are brilliant. Some of them are extraordinarily brilliant, but Nigerians are brilliant. Nigerians are brilliant. A black nation. Number 2, Nigeria's greatest export. I'm still here. Nigeria's greatest export at the end of time is the gospel of the kingdom. This is one country that must preach the pure gospel before the world comes to an end. This is the last bastion of Christianity. There's no place in the world, maybe there is, but very rare, where you have, whether they are nominal or not, it's not important, where you have 50 million people who are claiming to be Christians. So maybe a few places, maybe South Korea. But how many countries? The number of people are even more than the population of most countries. You can even say they are Catholic. That one, you are now doing the Y, the X. Don't worry about the all those derivatives. I'm just saying people that say, I'm a Christian. Whether they are practicing it or not, don't worry about that. That one is later. That's why this country is important to the world. What happens here affects the rest of the world. This country is going to export the gospel of the kingdom. This is his calling. And it's a major assignment. That's why you can't lose hope over the country. Let's come back. I remember the third reason. How can I maximize my destiny? How can we maximize our destiny? Why is it important? It's a major lesson from the life of Esther to make the most of our life. How can you and I make the most of our life? It's a very important question. Please, understand this. That your biggest problem is not how to make it in life. It's how to find and maximize destiny. Think about it, make it. What does it mean to make it? Say, the man don't make it. What does that mean? He built a house? A house is not a home. There are two different things. Say, the man don't marry. Marriage. Most people are wanting to get out of marriage. It's not like that. The people that are not married want to marry. Those that are married, many of them want to marry. Because you don't jump into marriage like that. Yeah, marriage prepares you for life. That's a different topic, very heavy topic. What marriage topic? Marriage is a school. It's a school. And the thought today will affect it, because if you marry with the right mindset, you will enjoy it. If you marry with the wrong mindset, and nobody taught you the way I'm talking about teaching, you didn't learn that when you marry, you're marrying an imperfect person because yourself you're imperfect. You're now talking about the weakness of your spouse all the time. And even not just that you talk about it, it bothers you. I don't know why she's like this, why he's like this. What about you? How are you? Have you thought about that? So my wife is this, my wife is that. It means here you don't know yourself. Because if you know yourself, you don't have time to talk about other people. You have enough work for the rest of your life. Because the greatest work on earth is working on yourself. And by the way, if you work hard enough on yourself, you become so good you could marry anybody. You can marry the devil and live with them if you're good. Yes. It sounds like an outrageous statement. But it's not that outrageous. You can work so hard on yourself that you manage anybody. Most people are thinking that people that are happily married have no issues. They don't know they are managers. Because every good marriage takes good work. People are thinking that if you this is your wife, it's because you married the right woman. If you know my wife, you say, do you really know my wife? Do you know how expensive she is? I'm working very hard to keep her cool. You're talking like this. People don't know. They just talk. They just talk. Because people work hard. When somebody says 40th anniversary of marriage, people are thinking it's 40 years because it's easy. Ask him about the first 5 years. Some people, even the first 10 years, they didn't find their feet. Because it takes up to 10 years to even know why you married your spouse. Yes, because when you're married, you're focused on marriage. You don't even know why you're married. People that do wedding gown, all those kind of things. It's when they're married, now say,